G'day, my name's Alan Gamble. Welcome back to another episode of Aussie Box Office Charts. Big exciting week today, so let's get into last weekend's box office. In at number 1, we have F1 the movie with $7.7 million, opening very big, the third highest for the year, and by far Apple TV's biggest opening so far at all. We'll dig more into those numbers later. How to Train Your Dragon drops down to number 2 with another $2.7 million after 3 weeks of release, dropping 44% for a current total of $17.3 million. 28 Years Later drops down to number 3, a 49% drop with another $1.2 million in its second week for a current total of $4.6 million, which is now by far the highest of the franchise in Australia, even adjusted for inflation, beating out the first two. We'll take a look at that in a second. Lilo and Stitch drops another 32% in its 6th week of release with $769,000 for a current total of $28.4 million. And The Materialist drops down to number 5 with $690,000 in its 3rd week, dropping 51% for a current total of $5.5 million. Elio has dropped out of the top 5 already. Not good news for that. Speaking of 6 through 10, we have Elio at number 6 with another $547,000, a 28% hold in week 2 for a current total of $1.4 million. Normally a 28% hold would be really good, except when you open to under $1 million, it's less exciting. So no redemption for Elio at this point. We'll check how it's tracking a little bit shortly. M3GAN 2.0 opens in number 7 with $431,000, which is a 77% drop over what the original opened for in 2022. We'll check on that later. At number 8, we have Sardar Ji 3, a Punjabi language film out of India that is a comedy, and obviously this is the 3rd installment of that comedy adventure series. At number 9, we have Karate Kid Legends with another $330,000 in its 4th week, dropping 47% for a current total of $6.7 million. And at number 10, spending what will probably be its last week in the top 10, after 6 weeks of release dropping 56%, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, with another $295,000 for a current total of $22.9 million. So let's take an updated look at a couple of charts. First, top 5 openings, because we had some movement on this chart. Minecraft movie still stays at number 1 with its $13.6 million, and Lilo and Stitch still holds number 2 with $9.2 million. But at number 3, we have F1. That's right, the 3rd highest opening movie of the year with $7.7 million, which pushes How to Train Your Dragon down to number 4 with $6.7 million, and Captain America Brave New World down to number 5 with its $5.3 million opening. And all of that drops out Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. It is no longer a top 5 opening movie of 2025. But I also wanted to bring back this chart from a couple of weeks ago, where we just had The Materialist be the highest opening original film from 2025, and now F1 has crushed it. So for the sake of this chart, what I consider an original movie is a non-sequel existing movie franchise. It's not a spin-off or a reboot or a live-action remake. So some of these movies are still based on books and other material, but they're not a sequel movie. So we have F1 now top spot with its $7.7 million, Materialists at number 2 with $1.8 million, A Working Man at $1.7 million in number 3, Mikey 17 with its $1.6 million, and We Live in Time with its $1.5 million, which drops out Conclave from much earlier in the year with its $1.5 million, but slightly less. So with all this talk of F1 and Apple TV Plus, let's take a look at the Apple TV Plus original openings in Australia for their wide theatrical releases, because a lot of their movies didn't get released over here theatrically. There are 5 that did, and here are their openings. Killers of the Flower Moon in 2023 opened to $2.2 million. Napoleon, later in 2023, opened to just over $4 million. Argyle, the cat movie, opened to $2.95 million in 2024. I was one of those few people that went and saw that. Later in 2024, we had Fly Me to the Moon, which opened to $939,000. Yes, I also saw that at cinemas. So that was some of my money. But F1 in 2025 opened to $7.7 million. So you can see how much of a success it was compared to everything else they've released. Even Napoleon, it's not even close. And speaking of not even close, let's jump over to M3GAN and M3GAN 2.0. So in 2022, M3GAN opened in Australia to $1.9 million, and M3GAN 2.0 has just opened to $431,000. I'm not going to paint this picture. You should be able to draw your own conclusions from that. Turns out, if you have a viral smash hit success, doesn't mean you're necessarily guaranteed a second one. Also, since the June box office window has now wrapped, we can get an updated year-to-date of where we are box office performance-wise in Australia compared to previous years. And you can see we're currently tracking at $331 million, which is about $30 million ahead of last year, which is good. But we're slightly behind 2023, which is not so good. And you can see there, back in 2019, at this time, we were $430 million, $100 million higher. So we're still nothing close to where we used to be pre-pandemic, but we'll see where we end up for the year. A few little changes for the top 10 for this 2025 for the Australian market. 1 through 4 are still the same. A Minecraft movie, Lilo and Stitch, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and Paddington in Peru at 56 million, 28 million, 22.9 million, and 17.7 million. Closing the gap on Paddington in Peru is How to Train Your Dragon, moving up to 5th spot with $17.3 million, which moves Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy down to number 6 with its $16.5 million. Thunderbolts moves down to number 7, Captain America down to number 8. Sinners remains at number 9 with $11.3 million, and Snow White has closed out its Australian domestic run at $9.1 million. Nothing drops out of the chart this week. Time to take a quick look at what's upcoming this week, 3rd of July, in both wide and limited releases at your local cinemas. The biggest release is obviously Jurassic World Rebirth, the latest reboot of the Jurassic World series, this time directed by Gareth Edwards, who I personally enjoy, but I did loathe the previous Jurassic World movie. Like, really a lot. This one is starring Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey, and Mahershala Ali. Actually opening on the 5th of July is Smurfs, directed by Chris Miller and written by Pam Brady, starring Rihanna, Nick Offerman, and Dan Levy. So Elio has some more competition on the block. In limited release, we have 3 notable ones that I was able to find. Lovesick, a Chinese romantic drama about a teen pretending to be sick to get close to a girl. Metro Indino, a Hindi language romance out of India, a sequel to the 2007 movie Life in Metro. And The Shrouds, the latest film written and directed by David Cronenberg, starring Vincent Cassel, Diane Kruger, Guy Pearce, and Sandra Holt. If you're into Cronenberg movies, this one's probably well already on your radar. Upcoming notable releases on streaming on the 2nd of July, actually all 3 of these. Over on Netflix, we have The Old Guard 2 releasing, the sequel to the 2020 movie, written by Greg Rucka, this time directed by Victoria Mahoney and starring Charlize Theron and Kiki Lane. We have Heads of State over on the competing service Amazon Prime, an action comedy about the UK Prime Minister teaming up with the US President to survive some crisis, directed by Ilya Nashula, who previously directed Nobody and Hardcore Henry, so there's some good acting chops behind the camera at least, starring John Cena, Idris Elba, Priyanka Chopra Jones, and Jack Quaid. And returning, we have Season 2 of The Sandman, finally releasing over at Netflix, returning for its 2nd and final season, that had finished production when all the allegations came out about its creator. So Netflix is releasing it anyway after enough time they think has died down. We will see how that plays out. I know some people are still keen to catch this. I'm probably not going to watch it because I don't like the fact they released Season 1 and then 3 weeks later they released 1 more episode. And I'm like, nope, I'm done watching this. But if you are a fan, it is releasing on the 2nd of July. So with 4 movies watched for the theme of 7 deadly sins, let's dive in. First up, representing the sin of wrath, was Lady Snowblood from 1973, directed by Toshiya Fujita and starring Maiko Kaji, an OG revenge tale, and one that was a heavy inspiration for Kill Bill. A true classic movie that was worth the watch and did throw a few curveballs into the story as well for something so old. Next, representing the sin of pride, we have the 2017 movie Molly's Game, written and the directorial debut of Aaron Sorkin, starring Jessica Chastain, Idris Elba, Kevin Costner, and Michael Cera. A surprise late addition to the list, as I only learned about it while looking up other movies from Aaron Sorkin that he'd written, and I found this. Started watching it to confirm that it did meet the challenge, and it did. And I always love a good poker movie, and this was great. A little bit too long and did lose some momentum in the third act, but still a really solid movie with classic Aaron Sorkin dialogue. Next is a bit of a loose criteria, but F1 or F1 the movie, representing the sin of envy. The latest movie from director Joseph Kosinski and writer Ehren Kruger from Top Gun Maverick, starring Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, Javier Bardem, and Kerry Condon. Great big summer blockbuster with some S-tier sound design and score, some phenomenal camera work. The screenplay is something you have 100% seen before, even recently like Gran Turismo from a few years ago, but the charm of Brad Pitt, the phenomenal sound design do offset the weaknesses of that screenplay. I had a blast with it, had a big dumb grin at multiple times throughout the movie. And lastly, representing greed was a rewatch from 2022 with Ambulance, directed by Michael Bay and starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and Isa Gonzalez, a high-paced action chase movie done in a classic Bay style, one of Michael Bay's best movies since his early 2000s, before he started doing nothing apart from Transformers movies. Felt just like a 90s action movie. Real chases, real car crashes, great action, phenomenal. Love it. To counter the sins challenge from last week, this time we have 7 noble virtues. So courage, compassion, integrity and honesty, sacrifice and selflessness, perseverance, love and empathy, and humility. Movies focused on those. There's a lot of available options. We have things like Brave or Captain America Brave New World, Sacrifice, 12 Angry Men, Her, Hidden Figures, The Fugitive or Untouchables. So we've got a bunch. Let's check out my shortlist, which contains things like Kind Hearts and Coronets, Odessa, Erin Brockovich, Big George Foreman, Love According to Dalva, Born to be a Champion, Utama. We've got Juror Number 2. So we've got a few. We'll see where we end up. That is it for me this week. Join me again next week where I am going to try to catch Jurassic World, the new one. We'll see what I think. But also we will see the box office performance of Jurassic World. Jurassic Park movies have always been fairly big box office movies here in Australia, regardless of how much the movies might suck, which is a lot for some of them. But I'm going to try and catch that this weekend. Apart from that, that's largely it. We'll be checking in on things like F1 Week 2 and a few of the other things. I might take an updated look at Elio next week as well, see how it's tracking. It's got to get $8 million. It's at 1.4 to not be the lowest Pixar movie of all time. I'm not sure it's going to get there. But apart from that, that's it for me this week. Have a good one. Watch more movies. I'll see you again later. Bye.